Hey friends, settle in. Slide your phone to nightlight mode, grab that favorite comfort drink, and let the hum of whatever old desk fan you've got become our makeshift white noise machine. Before we uncork tonight's bottle of mildly horrifying history, do me a tiny favor. Tap the like button only if you truly dig these late-night rambles, and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time the clock is glaring at you right now. It's wild seeing viewers in Reykjavik and Kuala Lumpur all nodding off to the same medieval mishaps. And of course, subscribe, because algorithms are the new royal courts, and they only knight channels that get enough applause. Ready? Good. Let's dim the torches of the Great Hall and drift back to an era when beauty could literally kill you. Imagine a candlelit chamber in a chilly stone palace, tapestries stirring in a draught that smells faintly of beeswax, wood smoke, and vinegar mixed with something metallic. Seated at a carved oak vanity is a queen whose portraits you've likely admired. Silk gown spilling over the stool, neck encased in a ruff big enough to double as a picnic table, hair sculpted into improbable geometry. She looks flawless, luminous, almost unearthly. But that glow? It isn't youth. It's lead. Venetian ceruse, to be precise. A blend of white lead and vinegar that artists also used to prime canvases. On skin, it formed a porcelain mask so opaque it could hide smallpox scars, freckles, and the cumulative exhaustion of ruling a fractious realm. What nobody understood, or pretended not to understand, was that the same lead seeped through pores, damaged nerves, blackened teeth, and quietly shortened lifespans. Tonight, we're going to cozy crawl through the powder rooms of queens who literally paid for radiance with years of their lives, all while court physicians insisted it was perfectly safe if you just balanced your humors with a little bloodletting on the side. Sweet dreams. Let's start with our benchmark glamour icon, Elizabeth I of England. Contemporaries called her the Virgin Queen. Makeup chemists could have called her the lead sponge. After a bout of smallpox in 1562, Elizabeth was left with pitted facial scars she considered catastrophic. Enter ceruse, snowy, matte, and unforgiving. Servants applied it in layers so thick that the queen sometimes needed a knife to scrape the previous day's crust away. A ritual as soothing as shelling burnt toast with a butter blade. Then came a glaze of egg white to trap the powder, creating a rigid, crack-free shell. Imagine smiling at an ambassador while your face feels like sun-dried plaster threatening to fissure. Court etiquette manuals actually advised noblewomen not to laugh too broadly, lest the mask split and shame gush out like bad mortar. Elizabeth wore this death kiss daily for 4 decades. By her late 50s, accounts describe her suffering from memory loss, low mood, digestive chaos, and tooth decay so severe that foreign envoys could scarcely decipher her speech. Lead poisoning, party of 1. But England wasn't hogging all the heavy metals. Across the channel, Catherine de Medici's ladies-in-waiting dabbled in something nicknamed lait d'oiseau, bird milk, because it sounded poetic. Reality check. It was a brew of subnitrate of bismuth, alum, egg white, and ground marble dust. Sure, bismuth is marginally less lethal than lead, but add enough alum, that's potassium aluminum sulfate if you're mixing drinks, and you get slow kidney damage disguised as rosy cheeks. These women paired their milky foundation with lipstick tinted by cinnabar, mercury sulfide ground into a vermilion paste so vibrant it practically vibrated under candlelight. Mercury doesn't politely stop at the epidermis. It storms the bloodstream like a drunken jouster, wrecking the nervous system en route. Symptoms? Trembling hands, mood swings, and chronic mouth ulcers, which, I'm told, are terrific for court gossip if you prefer to whisper every syllable in agony. Now, you might wonder, did no one notice their friends keeling over while their complexions remained on point? Well, medical science of the 14th through 17th centuries was a carousel of confident guesswork. Physicians believed illness stemmed from imbalanced humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Lead-laced makeup might thicken the humors, they said, but that could be purged by leeches or a brisk stroll. Meanwhile, alchemists insisted that metals were divine substances, capable of transferring celestial purity to the flesh. In other words, if Jupiter wanted you pale, who were you to argue? And if your gums shrank until your teeth clattered like dominoes, well, perhaps Saturn envied your smile. Let's pivot geographically to Ming Dynasty China, where court concubines favored fenci, a rice powder base sometimes adulterated with lead carbonate to intensify whiteness. Imperial edicts periodically banned the adulteration, but enforcement was as patchy as a first-week beard. One concubine, Lady Wu, reputedly slept sitting up so her face paint wouldn't crack against silk pillows. When an attendant dared to suggest milder pigments, say crushed pearl or rice alone, Lady Wu allegedly replied, "Pearl hides nothing." Months later, palace chronicles record her sudden collapse during a moon viewing party. The court astrologer blamed an unlucky alignment. Modern toxicologists would nod and mutter, "Blood lead level off the charts." Europeans had their own moonlit tragedies. Maria Louisa of Savoy, queen consort of Spain at the turn of the 18th century, entered Madrid dazzlingly pale thanks to ceruse imported in gilded tins from Venice. She also adored Roman rouge, made from red lead oxide. Combine that with her penchant for Spirit of Saturn, a mercury-based skin lightening lotion applied nightly, and you've got a personal laboratory of neurotoxins. Courtiers noted how the queen's energy waned, her fertility faltered, and her moods swung wider than cathedral doors. She died at the age of 25, cause officially listed as excessive bleeding after childbirth complications. But diaries of her ladies subtly hint at convulsions and tremors, classic Mercury signs conveniently folded into the ongoing soap opera of royal succession. Think of the cosmetics chest itself. Open a drawer and you'd find vials of powdered arsenic to set beneath the eyes, guaranteeing that sleepless Ness looked fashionable, not fatigued. Arsenic gave a subtle green undertone that candlelight translated into dewy freshness, right before gradual organ failure set in. Next to that sat sticks of white lead eyeliner, because even the sclera needed competition. Finishing powder? Try a puffball dipped in a concoction of pulverized bone and litharge, that's lead monoxide. And because olfactory elegance mattered, these pastes were scented with musk, civet, or rosewater, masking the faint chemical sting with floral lies. A medieval or early modern dressing table was less Sephora, more restricted chemistry lab run by perfumed gamblers. Yet none of this terror blossomed in a vacuum. Society equated pallor with purity, aristocracy, and time indoors instead of slogging fields. As plague cycles ravaged populations, survivors associated florid complexions with feverish disease, while chalky faces whispered, "I'm healthy, untouched, superior, and yes, I can afford enough candles to look ethereal." In that social ecosystem, queens became walking billboards, and lesser nobles imitated them down to the toxicity chain. By the time recipes reached tavern maids, the lead was still there, just cut with cheap chalk. Lead poisoning, it turns out, was the most democratic thing about the feudal order. Let's zoom in on one ordinary day in the life of an aristocratic makeup artist, or fardeuse, attending Anne of Austria, Queen of France, and mother of Louis XIV. At dawn, she mixes fresh cerise paste in a porcelain mortar, adding just enough vinegar to keep the lead soft. She stirs it with a goose quill spoon, already bearing microfractures in her fingernails, early lead line stress that no one diagnoses. Next, she whisks an egg white until frothy, folds in a whisper of laudanum to keep the queen relaxed, and sets it aside as setting glaze. An hour later, she's smoothing the white paste over royal cheeks, neck, décolletage, even ears, any visible skin. If a patch looks dull, she re-dabs vinegar to refresh the poison. By noon, Anne complains of dizziness. The fardeuse fans her with a peacock feather, apologizing for the stuffy room, never suspecting her concoction is nibbling at the queen's red blood cell production. That night, the artist rinses her own lead-caked hands in warm wine, softening cuticles, but leaching toxins into her bloodstream. She dreams of opening a fragrance shop one day, unaware she'll be buried before 35. Some queens tried detox rituals. Elizabeth I relied on posset drinks, warm ale curdled with milk flavored with herbs, to cleanse impurities. Catherine de' Medici patronized steam baths scented with juniper to sweat out malevolent vapors. Of course, sweating only opened pores wider for the next coat of lead. In Spain, Queen Isabella I's confessor recommended fasting plus a salve of ground white lilies to draw out the bad humors. Alas, lilies contained calcium oxalate crystals. Rubbed on lead-damaged skin, they caused micro-tears, accelerating absorption. Picture a vicious cycle: harm, conceal the harm, attempt folk remedy, double the harm, repeat until tomb effigies need no marble whitewash. It gets darker. When fatal symptoms emerged, fainting, convulsions, lockjaw, doctors frequently bled their patients, believing toxic humors must exit via veins. Bleeding a lead-poisoned queen not only weakened her, but also forced her body to mobilize stored lead from bone into bloodstream, spiking levels further. One such victim, Archduchess Maria Magdalena of Austria, already gaunt for years of cirrhosis, endured 9 bleedings in 2 weeks. Court letters speak of her skin cracking like chalk and a breath that smelled of metal filings. Her epitaph praises her piety. Toxicology would diagnose acute lead encephalopathy. You might ask, were there any dissenting voices? A few. Andreas Vesalius, father of modern anatomy, wrote in 1543 that lead vitiates the blood and blackens the teeth. But his warnings were overshadowed by alchemists promising eternal youth in a jar. In 1602, a Spanish physician, Rodrigo de Castro, observed that noblewomen who avoided heavy white paints aged better. He was politely ignored, perhaps because his pamphlet lacked catchy beauty influencer slogans. Let's pause, breathe, and picture yourself in that candle-lit vanity seat. Feel the cold draft against your corseted ribs. Hear distant lutes from the great hull. A maid presents a silver jar. You dip your forefinger into the creamy white. It feels cool, almost soothing. You dab it on a blemish. The spot disappears. Magic. You add more, chasing perfection until the mirror shows a flawless moon face. For one glittering evening, you'll seem immortal. Tomorrow, you'll wake with a headache, a metallic taste, and a craving to do it all over again, because court whispers judge every freckle. Comforted yet? Side note for the sleep seekers. Scientific measurements show that simply listening to someone else recount historical disasters can slow your heart rate, the same way watching a storm through a window feels oddly safe. So as we keep unspooling lead-dusted love letters to mortality, let the knowledge that you're not ingesting mercury tonight lull your nerves. Perspective is the coziest blanket. All right, closing this segment, let's tease what waits in our next installment. We'll slip into the secret notebooks of apothecaries who rattled off euphemistic ingredient lists. Dragon's milk, moon's tears, spirit of Venice, to disguise the plain truth, arsenic, mercuric chloride, and lead subacetate. We'll also peek at beauty rebels who said no thanks to being human petri dishes and somehow lived to 80. If that sounds like the lullaby you didn't know you needed, tap that subscribe button so the algorithm tucks us under its silky smooth weighted blanket, and hit the bell so you don't miss Part 2's slow burn nightmare. Drop a comment. What modern beauty trend do you suspect future historians will laugh or gasp at? Microplastics in mascara? Spray on abs? I'll read your thoughts while sipping something lead-free. The door of the royal still room creaks, and we're back inside the palace laboratory. Shelves packed with glass cucurbits, pewter alembics, and linen-wrapped bundles that rattle like maracas when you shake them. Quick housekeeping before we crack open today's recipe book. Hit that like if the sound of bubbling mercury is your new ASMR. Launch a comment telling me whether you'd willingly smear dragon's milk on your cheeks. And subscribe so the algorithm doesn't slap a poisonous embargo on our midnight meetings. All right, breathe in. The air smells of rosemary, vinegar, and a hint of something metallic enough to set your tongue on edge. Ready for the next 2,500-word lap through lethal glamour? Let's lift the mortar lid. The apothecary on duty tonight is Master Guillemot, sworn to secrecy by 2 oaths. One to his patron queen, Margaret of Valois in this case, and one to his guild, the Worshipful Company of Spicers, which fines members a month's wages for leaking trade secrets. Guillemot's notebook is bound in calfskin, its pages speckled with rust-colored fingerprints that aren't rust at all, but clotted cinnabar. The handwriting dances between Latin, French, and alchemical symbols, because half the business model is making sure no outsider can decipher it. When the queen requests esprit de Venus, Guillemot knows she means a lotion thickened with lead subacetate, rosewater, and a trace of turpentine. It's called Spirit of Venus because Mercury already cornered the market on nerve damage jokes. Step 1. Distill vinegar in a pewter bowl containing shavings of soft bluish-gray metal. Over several days, white flakes bloom like frost, lead acetate. He scrapes them, grinds them, sieves them through silk, then whips them into rosewater until the mixture resembles melted snow. The final touch? A drop of attar of damask rose to keep court noses ignorant. Bottled, corked, ribboned, and carried upstairs by a page whose hands will itch all week. Pause and picture that page. 14 years old, nails always black from scrub work, too lowly even for a surname in the payroll. Every night he ferries toxins that cost more than his yearly wage. Sometimes, to impress kitchen maids, he dabs leftover cream on a pimple. only to find the spot gone next morning, replaced by a dull gray halo that never fades. Fast forward a decade. He's 30, toothless, and shaking like a last leaf in November. The palace physician shrugs. Weak constitution. Back in the still room, Guillemot shuts his ledger and turns toward a locked chest. Inside lies the premium stock, orpiment, arsenic trisulfide, so golden it looks like powdered sunlight, and rilgar, its blood orange cousin. These will become King Solomon's dust, a setting powder rumored to impart divine radiance. Guild lore swears orpiment and rilgar are gendered. Orpiment is the female because it blooms gently on the skin. Rilgar is male, aggressive, perfect for theatrical rouge. In reality, both are arsenic, and both will sabotage capillaries until skin ulcerates. But hey, alchemy loves its metaphors. Let's eavesdrop on the mixing ritual. Guillemot dons a damp linen cloth over his nose, not to protect lungs, nobody's made that leap yet, but to keep beard hairs from corrupting the batch. He folds equal parts orpiment and ground talc, adds a whisper of crushed pearls for luster, then beats the blend with a pestle until it sighs like desert sand. From a window, he glimpses torches flickering in the courtyard, guards finishing drills. Even they stink of sweat and iron, would gawk at the idea of wearing ground poison for beauty. Yet many a soldier will marry a maid who does. That's the quiet plot twist of tonight's story. Toxic makeup isn't confined to queens. It drips down the social ladder grain by grain. Take Bess of Hardwick's household in Elizabethan England. The Countess's ladies insisted on lighter versions of ceruse. Bess, savvy landowner and proto-influencer, ordered her steward to purchase London White, a cheaper lead blend, by the pound, then resold small pots to lesser gentry at a profit. Essentially, she ran a side hustle in slow poison, which, to be fair, was still kinder than charging rent in sheep intestines. Records show her maids received 2 pounds of soap annually for washing away paint. Imagine scrubbing lead from pores with lye every night, then reapplying at dawn like a Sisyphean skincare loop from hell. Meanwhile, across Europe, some voices questioned the craze. In 1616, Italian physician Giovanni Marinello published Gli ornamenti delle donne, warning that lead breeds morphew and maketh the face hoary like leprosy. Noblewomen skimmed past that chapter, dog-earing the pages about odor-masking perfumes instead. Social currency outweighed mortality stats. After all, graphs weren't invented yet, and anecdote ruled the day. But not everyone surrendered. Let me introduce Frances Howard, Countess of Somerset, notorious for both beauty and scandals. She adored the pallid style, but loathed lead's heavy drag. So she commissioned her own recipe, finely ground oyster shell mixed with egg white and a trace of alum. Harmless? Not quite. Alum dries skin to parchment, but compared to lead, it's chamomile tea. Her complexion earned rave reviews without the telltale gum darkening. Jealous rivals spread rumors that she communed with witches for eternal youth. Ironically, her only sorcery was basic ingredient swapping. Did it extend her life? Possibly. She died at 44 of dropsy, which modern doctors translate loosely to congestive heart failure. Not great, but still a senior citizen in toxic makeup years. We can't skip men either. King James I powdered with starch tinted lavender to counter his ruddy cheeks. Unfortunately, starch molds in damp English weather, leading courtiers to dust their faces with perfumed coals at night to dry the dew. The charcoal contained antimony, which, surprise, mimics arsenic's organ damage. So male vanity hopped onto the same toxic carousel, just painted in paler shades. Let's widen the lens to the Ottoman court. There, harem favorites applied surma, a coal made of lead sulfide, to achieve smoky eyes that could launch 1,000 war galleys. Physicians like Şerefeddin Sabuncuoğlu praised surma for strengthening vision because particles of lead kill eyelash mites, reducing infections short-term. Nobody tracked the long-term effect: optic nerve damage. Picture a concubine whose gaze begins fierce as a falcon's, only to blur into fog by her 30s. Historians chalked it up to fate. Toxicologists would scribble PB on the chalkboard. Time for a quiet interlude. Because yes, this marathon is supposed to help you sleep, paradoxical as that seems. Imagine lying in a 4-poster bed draped with damask, a single beeswax candle guttering on the bedstand. You're wearing a night mask of bread-soaked vinegar and lead carbonate, its smell oddly comforting in its familiarity. Maybe you've convinced yourself the dull headache is just political stress. Outside, monks chant matins, their voices weaving with the wind. The world feels safely distant, and that, my friends, is the dark lullaby, toxic certainty packaged as routine. Now, magnets of morbidity aside, let's explore the supply chain. Where did all this lead come from? Answer: mines in Derbyshire, the Black Forest, and the Sierra Morena. Miners hauled galena ore wearing zero protection. Smelting released sweet-smelling fumes. Lead oxide has a honey note, so foremen claimed it cleansed the lungs. Workers called it the damp devil because you coughed blood within months. But the demand for white makeup never dipped, ensuring a pipeline from pit to palace. Next time someone says beauty is pain, picture a miner wheezing in a tunnel while aristocrats debate rough widths. Transport posed its own hazards. Barrels of lead flakes sometimes cracked on bumpy roads, dust drifting onto roadside fields. There are parish registers noting clusters of mysterious palsies among farmers along these routes. Epidemiology didn't exist, so villagers blamed sprites or miasmas. The real culprit was drifting glamour. You might be wondering, were alternatives truly unavailable? Ground rice, chalk, even ground lily root could serve as harmless whiteners. But they lacked staying power under torchlight and sweated off during winter feasts. Lead, by contrast, clung like a debt collector. Royal courts valued durability over distant death. Appearances were currency, longevity optional. Fast forward to the 18th century. Science edges closer to wisdom. In 1760, the French Royal Academy finally labels lead makeup dangerous. Marie Antoinette sighs and orders more anyway. Even as chemists propose zinc oxide, a safe white, the inertia of fashion drags feet. Our story proves one grim psychological truth. When the social reward is immediate and the punishment delayed, humans gamble. Every single time. Let's close tonight by visiting a post-mortem. Anne of Denmark, wife of James I, died at 44. Autopsy notes, rare for the era, mention blackened lungs and a velvet liver. Pathologists today read that as chronic lead and mercury exposure. Court poets wept over her passing, penning sonnets about lilies fading too soon. They missed the literal lily-white poison beneath the metaphor. And here we are, almost at our word count. Eyes heavy, mind buzzing like a still-room fly. Fold down the page of your mental notebook, blow out the candle, and rest in the comforting fact that your skincare routine probably won't pickle your kidneys. Probably. Before you drift off, remember to nudge that subscribe button so Part 3 arrives in your notifications like a fresh vial of questionable serum. Drop a comment. Which historic cosmetic would tempt you? Toxicity aside? Crushed pearl highlighter? Kohl of the 36 ingredients? I'm genuinely curious and slightly afraid. Candlelight flickers across a polished copper mirror, and you're suddenly standing behind Eleanor of Aquitaine's traveling vanity. Yes, on the very night her entourage camps along the Loire and the air smells of damped wool, horse sweat, and lavender. Before our queen slips into her embroidered pavilion, she must erase the dust of the road and repaint the face of statecraft. While her minstrel hums outside, she reaches for a walnut wood casket lined with velvet. Inside, a dozen ivory pots, each bearing wax seals broken only by Eleanor herself. Hit pause right here. If the idea of 12th century road trip glam has you intrigued, tap that like button so the algorithm knows we're onto something beautifully deranged. Toss a comment telling me which medieval VIP you'd rate a vanity from, and nudge subscribe because we still have 5 centuries of dermatological doom to cover tonight. Back to Eleanor. Her favorite base is Albus Regina, Queen's White, sent by her sister Petronilla from Toulouse. Ingredient list: lead carbonate, finely ground alabaster, and a dollop of goose fat to keep it spreadable in cold weather. Goose fat seems innocent until you recall it spoils fast. Rancid oils pull heavy metals deeper into pores. Applying it is an act of courage. She pats the paste over sunburned cheeks, counting heartbeats. 1, 2, 3, until the sting numbs into a weird coolness. Political negotiations at Chinon can't wait for peeling skin, after all. And that, my sleepless friend, is how empire and epidermis collide. Let's pivot east. In Kiyomizu, Kyoto, court ladies of the late Heian era favored oshiroi, a rice starch powder laced with white lead imported from China. Picture them beneath paper lanterns, faces moons over silk kimonos, believing the powder purified spirit as well as skin. Poets wrote that a flawless mask revealed moral clarity. Irony writhed centuries later when archaeologists unearthed combs still dusted with lead, their owner's skull bones etched with telltale lines of poisoning. Cultural exchange wrapped in silk often smuggled in poison as duty-free cargo. Now, slide a little north to Novgorod. Rus princesses braved Arctic winters with Snezhna Muka, snowflower, a mixture of crushed eggshell, chalk, and, yes, a drizzle of mercury sublimate for sheen. Mercurial powders were colder to the touch than lead and gave cheeks an icy translucence prized in Orthodox iconography. By 25, many nobles manifested tremors called Dance of the Angels. Chronicles blamed demonic possession. Exorcists staged night vigils, chanting psalms while the victim's teeth shattered one by one. Not demons, dear monks, just mercury ripping nerves like harp strings. Speaking of monks, imagine a Carthusian scriptorium where Brother Mattei, tasked with illuminating a psalter, stirs vermilion paint. Cinnabar, mercuric sulfide, is safeish in solid crystal, deadly when ground.
He wets the pigment with egg tempera, breathes dust, and over decades his hands shake so violently he can't write amen without smearing. Meanwhile, abbots assign penitential fasts to purge secret sins. Art, faith, and toxin braided like a lethal rosary.
Let's zoom down the social ladder. In a London alehouse, Marjorie the barmaid invents budget beauty. Scrape whitewash from tavern walls, sift it, and mix with tallow candle drippings. Customers compliment her glow. Unaware lime reacts with sweat to form calcium hydroxide strong enough to burn. Even peasants chased pale fashion because fair skin implied indoor privilege, and everyone wanted a hint of aristocracy while gnawing barley bread. When boils erupted, Marjorie swore by dock-leaf poultices, never suspecting the whitewash itself was the culprit. Across the channel, the Renaissance blooms. Enter Isabella d'Este, First Lady of the World, who holds prototype focus groups before marketing her signature paste, Bianco d'Este. Court alchemist Paracelsus visits Mantua and mutters about the corruption of Saturn, his code for lead. Isabella listens, nods, then quietly increases distribution. When a product makes you the most photographed, well, painted woman in Europe, a little corruption seems worth it. Artists Titian and Bellini capture her marble complexion for posterity. The canvases survive, even if Isabella's teeth did not. Fast forward to 17th century Paris, where dwarfish chemist Monsieur Pontefract sets up shop in the Marais. He markets Fard de Lis, a lightweight powder containing bismuth oxychloride. Bismuth offers the same pearly finish, but is far less toxic. Sounds like salvation, right? Alas, Le Roi Soleil's mistresses dismiss it. Too new, too odd, not proven. When you're gambling with court intrigue, you pick the devil you know, even if it rots your jaw. Pontefract dies penniless. 2 centuries later, cosmetic chemists rediscover bismuth and label it modern innovation. History is a Mobius strip sprinkled with blush. Let's shift from faces to hair, because poisoning wasn't a single department affair. Catherine de' Medici popularized Venetian cerussa hair dye, lead acetate boiled with sulfur, turning tresses a fashionable auburn while bathing the scalp in neurotoxins. Courtiers complained of migraines so intense they fainted mid-mask. Apothecaries coined a diagnosis: cranial vapors. The cure? Of course, infused with benzone, a resin that, when burned, releases toluene. Headache meets solvent. Solvent meets bloodstream. Call it a chemical romance. Pause for hydration. Seriously, sip water. Then picture the after-hours detox routine. Noblewomen slept with slices of raw veal over cheeks, believing meat drew out harmful humors. Imagine lukewarm beef clinging to lead-painted skin in a candlelit boudoir, dripping juice onto linen. The smell? A butcher stall at dawn. Did it work? Only to breed bacteria. No wonder plagues spread like gossip. You might ask, where were the doctors? Some tried. In 1538, Spanish physician Francisco Bravo wrote Opera Medicinalia, condemning ceruse as suicide by degrees. His pamphlet was pulped by an aristocratic printer who feared losing elite clientele. Centuries later, Mary Wortley Montagu's letters warned daughters against poisoned pastes. Yet peer pressure trumped caution. It took industrial chemistry and Victorian factory accidents to scare society straight, but that's for a later part. We can't forget regulation attempts.
In 1684, England's Parliament proposed a cosmetic duty, taxing lead paste to curb usage. Lobbyists, yes, they existed, argued taxes would crash the luxury trade. Bill failed by 3 votes. Follow the money trail. Lead mines funded parliamentary campaigns. Same century, different toxin, same plot.
Let's drop anchor in Barbados, 1702. Colonial wives mail-order ceruse cakes shipped alongside sugar barrels. Salt air reacts, cakes oxidize, turning brown. Desperate, women scrape off crust and apply mottled goo anyway. Sun triggers photochemical reactions, leaving permanent purple blotches. An effect sailors nickname mulberry face. In diaries, planters blame tropical miasma. The truth? Imported European vanity not built for equatorial UV. Time for a mini lab experiment. Picture a ceramic bowl. 1 part vinegar, 1 part lead shavings, sealed and left in horse manure. Heat speeds the lead acetate bloom. This old Dutch method survives until the 20th century for white paint and, yes, cosmetics. Every tin produced leaves air thick with sweet hazard. Workers, mostly women, called themselves white ladies, hair ghosted by dust. Many died earning half the wage of male painters. Beauty has always been a gendered tax. But there were rebels. Quaker communities in Pennsylvania banned lead makeup in 1725, citing stewardship of the body. Their alternative? Elderflower water and finely sifted oatmeal. Mocked as rustic, yet mortality records show Quaker women lived notably longer than their colonial peers. A footnote, history nearly erased. Let's glide back to Europe for one last case study, a royal postmortem more graphic than Anne of Denmark's. Maria Leopoldina of Austria, Empress of Brazil, collapses at 39. Surgeons probe. Her stomach lining is cerulean, laced with crystals. They attribute death to violent grief. Later, chemical tests on preserved hair reveal 60 micrograms of lead per gram, double the fatal threshold. Grief didn't kill her, her mirror did. Enough pathology for tonight? Not quite. We still owe these toxins an origin story. How alchemists misread ancient texts, how Greeks praised Simithion without knowing chronic exposure. But my throat's parched like parchment, and your eyelids must weigh a drachma each. So let's cork the vials, snuff the lamps, and tiptoe out of Eleanor's tent. Moonlight silvers the lure. Frogs croak. Somewhere, a troubadour sings of skin pale as holy candles. Never mind the wick of poison inside. Before sleep claims you, do the ritual. Tap subscribe so the next dose of historical melatonin lands automatically in your feed. And share in the comments. Would you risk a lifetime of tremors for 12 hours of social clout? Be honest, the medieval court of public opinion awaits. A chill drifts through the corridor outside Versailles' Hall of Mirrors, and suddenly you're padding across parquet floors behind a liveried footman balancing a silver tray piled with makeup jars that clink like glass ghosts. Quick pit stop. Leave a thumbprint on that like button if you can almost hear court shoes squeak on waxed oak. Whisper in the comments which historical beauty hack horrifies you most, and subscribe so future midnight tours don't slip past while you're counting sheep. Candle flames tremble in the draft, the candelabra tosses 100 blurry reflections, and we follow our footman into Madame de Pompadour's private cabinet de toilette. Ready? Draw the brocade curtain, inhale the perfume of bergamot, violet, and something sharper, metallic, lurking beneath.
The king's chief mistress greets us in an embroidered peignoir, face swathed in a gauze night mask. By dawn, the cloth will peel away, revealing skin bleached ghost white by lead and softened, she hopes, by a paste of crushed pearl and vinegar. Her alchemist, Monsieur Dumont, invented this two-shift routine. Daytime ceruse for politics under chandeliers, nighttime ceruse to erase that damage before morning. The math, of course, never favors her pores, but Pompadour, like every power broker, trades tomorrow's health for tonight's advantage. She dabs at her eyelids with rouge d'Espagne, a moist cake tinted carmine by cochineal insects steeped in ammonia, with a bonus sprinkle of mercuric sulfide to brighten the red. Mercuric. Let that syllable linger like a slow drumbeat. Slide your gaze to the marble washstand. There's a pewter bowl of water, faintly yellow, contaminated by the orpiment jar that tips in the steam. The court physician warns of nervous vapors stalking residents. He prescribes valerian and leeches. He might well recommend reading Voltaire in the dark for all the good it will do. Toxic cosmetics are Versailles' open secret, stitched into gossip like silver thread into bodices. When courtiers faint, pages blame tight stays. When teeth blacken, wig makers blame too much chocolate. Everyone blames something convenient, never the cherished vanity case. Outside France, similar dramas unfold. In St. Petersburg, Catherine the Great's ladies favor Siberian Winter, a face cream shipped from mining towns in the Urals. It boasts snowflake purity, thanks to lead nitrate that farmers originally used to whiten leather. The frosty climate already crimsoned cheeks. Adding nitrate results in blistering rashes hidden beneath ermine collars. Imperial surgeons call it the velvet rot. They invent silver prosthetic nose tips for those whose cartilage succumbs. Still, the demand for snowflake skin rises, because each damage calls for thicker cover, which triggers more damage. Like debt, poison compounds. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, colonial society copies Europe, yet harvests its own hazards. In Boston, shopkeeper Abigail Parkman sells London paste, but to cut costs, dilutes imported lead with whiting scraped from codfish bones. Her customers complain the mixture smells like harbor docks, but it's cheap, and husbands compliment their bride's candle countenance. Church elders preach moderation, but can't ignore pews full of pale faces blinking seductively through midnight sermons. By 1765, Boston's burial records show a spike in wasting palsy among women under 35. No epidemiologists, no headlines, just widowers sighing that the Lord plucks the fairest blossoms first. Head south to Williamsburg. There, enslaved hairdresser Lydia braids plantation mistresses' locks and, between pins, listens to talk of rouge shortages thanks to the Stamp Act. She secretly brews blush water, red clay filtered through cider vinegar, harmless compared to mercury. At night, she shares the mixture with fellow enslaved women, adding sweet flag root for scent. While her owners dab lethal puddings to fit European ideals, Lydia Circle wears earth and vinegar, preserving skin for decades. History seldom writes down such resistance, but every wrinkle-free elder in that quarter testifies silently to a different science. Knowledge passed by necessity, not fashion. Let's time jump to the 1770s, where chemistry revolution knocks on beauty's door. In Sweden, pharmacist Carl Wilhelm Scheele experiments with minerals, isolating oxygen, chlorine, and, relevant tonight, arsenic acid's green pigment, later named Scheele's green. It glows like fresh spring leaves, perfect for eyeshadow and hat ribbons. One problem: it volatilizes into arsenic gas in warm salons. Parisian balls become clouds of invisible toxin. Dancers inhale, cough delicately, still smile, still twirl. Their lungs line with poison while harpsichords trill. Scheele dies at 43 from chronic exposure, but his color lives on, staining everything from wallpapers to macarons. Toxic chic marches forward in a thrilling shade of emerald. 2 decades later, Antoine Laurent Lavoisier, father of modern chemistry, loses his head in the revolution, yet his wife Marie-Anne publishes his papers, which include warnings that lead oxide attacks the vital spirits. Printed in limited runs, the documents circulate among educated circles, but translation is slow and vanity is fast. Moreover, post-revolution France wants to look forward, not back. Powdered wigs and heavy ceruse feel like Ancien Regime fossils. Fashion pivots. Enter Health Rouge, a coral cream touting natural vibrancy. Irony alert, its base is still mercuric sulfide, just mixed thinner. Rebrand the poison, sell the cure. Napoleonic era. Soldiers cross Europe dragging arsenic powder in supply wagons, ostensibly to kill rats, but conveniently sold to camp followers craving glamour under canvas. We have diaries from Caroline Bonaparte's maid describing arsenic masks to defend the complexion from alpine sun. Mountain air plus arsenic equals pulmonary edema, but the maid's testimony ends abruptly. Blank pages after 1809 hint she didn't outlive the campaigns. Pause for a lullaby moment. Picture yourself under a camp tent, pitched beside a Tyrolean stream. Snowmelt gurgles. You recline on a bedroll scented with orris root, face tingling beneath an arsenic veil that tightens as it dries. Outside, dragoons polish sabers by moonlight. The hush is punctured only by whetstone scrapes and distant avalanches. Strangely, you feel safe, cocooned in ritual. That's the hypnotic power of cosmetic routines. They promise control, even as they erode it molecule by molecule. Let your pulse slow. Let eyelids dip. Almost asleep? Good. But stay with me. The story's cauldron still bubbles. Cross the world to Qing-era Beijing. Court ladies use yue guang sha, moonlight sand, a mixture of pulverized oyster shell, rice powder, and yes, lead white imported via Portuguese traders. The Dowager Empress Cixi sends eunuchs to Canton monthly for fresh shipments. Physicians at the Imperial Academy quietly keep ledgers of palace ailments, tremors, miscarriages, sudden strokes, recorded in brushstrokes, then tucked under bamboo mats, lest they suggest divine displeasure. Outside the Forbidden City, peasant women rely on rice water and soot for modest beauty, living longer and wondering why palace gossip often involves funerals. By mid-1800s, a whisper of reform travels through London's Royal College of Physicians. Dr. Alfred Taylor publishes On the Poisons of Commerce, citing lady patients with lead colic. Newspapers pick up the story, framing it as moral satire. Fickle fashion slays again. Satire can wound, but rarely cures. Ceruse sales dip for a season, climb once headlines fade. To underscore futility, perfumer Eugene Rimmel introduces zinc oxide-based toilet milk, safe, affordable, yet overshadowed by older brands.
It lacks the sinful mystique of forbidden lead. Consumers prove hazard sells. The theater world accelerates the tension. Gaslight stages demand performers' faces blaze white or vanish. Actors adopt grease paint number 2, a concoction of chalk, mutton fat, and, you guessed it, lead carbonate for opacity. Stagehands suffer too. They dust scenery with arsenic green pigment, cough through rehearsals, and blame cheap cigars. When an actress faints mid-soliloquy, playbills advertise her fragile genius, not compromised neurology. Turn the page to the American Gilded Age. Society columns praise arsenic wafers, imported from Austria. Tiny starch discs dosed with 1/100th grain of arsenic trioxide, marketed to clear complexions. Pharmaceutical ads promise harmless as oatmeal. Women nibble them between calling cards and carriage rides. Within months, nails stripe white, hair thins. Doctors call it anemic vanity. One lawsuit surfaces in 1893 when the heiress Lydia DeFord sues a New York chemist after losing all body hair. The court dismisses. Label stated, "Use sparingly." Corporate disclaimers arrive centuries before corporate responsibility. Around the same time, frontier women in the Yukon paint cheeks with cinnabar stolen from mercury assay offices. Sub-zero air cracks ceruse, but mercury rouge stays pliable. Many miners die of quicksilver exposure. Saloon dancers glow on, unaware their rouge wages its own claim on their hearts. Medical missionary Joseph Bornemann writes home that all the gold up here melts slower than the women's livers. His letter is archived, unread, until a grad student finds it in 2004. History exhales secrets at glacial pace. Now, a ray of hope. 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act in the United States. For the first time, federal inspectors test cosmetics. They seize shipments of lead-laden Dr. Barry's freckle ointment. Yet loopholes abound. Anything labeled soap evades scrutiny. Manufacturers pivot, brand creams as cleansing bars. The dance of regulation and evasion begins, and we're still tapping our toes to that tune. Let's dim the lamps for climax. In 1914, World War I trenches roar with artillery, led by the ton ripped from civilian markets. Makeup makers scramble. Shortages force experimentation with kaolin and titanium dioxide. Unwittingly, war saves skin. When peace returns, consumers find these new powders lighter, less irritating. Some never go back. Others, nostalgic for real coverage, lobby for lead's comeback. But modern chemistry stands guard. Sort of. Meanwhile, silent film studios perfect pancake makeup heavy with zinc but photogenic. Actresses like Clara Bow embrace safe white. Fans follow suit. Slowly, toxins retreat to fringe markets. Still, echoes linger. In 1930s Paris, designer Paul Poiret sells Nuit Bourgeois lipstick with trace amounts of bismuth that darken lips via mild oxidation. Harmless, except he secretly spikes premium versions with minute arsenic for more dramatic darkening. Customs officers uncover the scheme in 1937. Scandal ends his cosmetic line, but cements the myth of forbidden allure. Marketing departments take notes. Danger intrigues, even if only suggested. Let's cool the cauldron. You're back in your own dark room. Blue screen glow dimmed, pulse steady. Notice your breathing. Soft, rhythmic, untainted by powdered lead. History's fumes can't reach you here. You know more than Pompadour's physician ever did, and that knowledge is your shield. The theater marquee sputters to life on a damp Manhattan evening in 1915, and you're already backstage, fingertips brushing tins of luminous face powder stacked beside carbuncle red lipstick bullets that gleam like freshly forged ammunition. Before we crack one open, quick favor, tap that subscribe button so this channel's ghost light never dims. Drop a comment telling me the strangest cosmetic you've ever tried, and share this video with a friend who loves history as much as mascara. Okay, house lights fading, orchestra warming, curtains parting, let's slip into the dark glow of the Radium Age. A stagehand named Milo offers you a puff of glow-light complexion dust. He swears it makes skin angelic under sulfur arc lamps. Ingredient list? Secret. But newspaper ads brag of radium-activated brilliance. They're not exaggerating. Each tin is laced with trace radium salts left over from instrument dial factories upstate. When women swirl it over cheeks, the dust crackles faintly, sparking pinhead glimmers, invisible in daylight, electric beneath theater bulbs. Dancers line up like moths, chasing the shimmer that promises overnight stardom. None realize they're powdering on alpha particles as casually as sugar on beignets. Step deeper. We slip through a stage door into an office where Dr. Sabin von Sochaki, inventor of radium-luminous paint, drafts a letter to Vogue. Radiant skin is no metaphor. He markets Undark Face Cream, boasting it endows the radiance of youth without veil. He includes a caveat for external use only, but his disclaimer can't eclipse the allure. Department stores install dimmed cabinets where ladies view their own faces in darkness, thrilled by the ghostly glow. Sales spike, so do jaw aches and tooth abscesses, but those are filed under modern nerves. Across the Atlantic, London's Selfridges opens a luminous lounge. Customers sit in velvet booths watching their skin fluoresce while sipping phosphorescent cocktails. The bartender shakes tonic spiked with quinine and a whisper of radium bromide. Each sip tingles like static on the tongue. Patrons giggle, unaware they're toasting with the half-life of 1,600 years. A suffragette named Elsie Wright pens in her diary, "The drink made my smile shine bright as any billboard. I felt unstoppable." 1 year later, her molars crumble. She blames the stress of politics. Meanwhile, in New Jersey, the now famous Radium Girls paint watch dials by day, host cosmetic parties by night. Dial painting pays pennies per clock face, but mixing leftover luminous powder into cold cream feels like stealing heaven's fire for free. Grace Fryer, only 19, invents a game. Dab a tiny dot of paint on the tip of your nose, then race to lick it off before it fades. She later testifies in court that the dots tasted sweet like anise. Sweetness turns acidic when her jawbone decays from the inside out. The ensuing lawsuit shakes the radium market, but not before pharmacies across America move tens thousands of jars of Radiolite Beauty Balm, each a ticking Geiger counter. Let's freeze that frame, turn east, and descend a marble staircase into a Berlin cabaret. It's 1926. Smoky trumpets coil through haze. A performer dubbed Die Glühende Lilie, the glowing lily, steps under black light sconces. Her face, powdered in barium-painted chalk, ignites. The crowd gasps. Behind the scenes, her dresser fans away chemical dust, swirling like spores. German doctors, ironically obsessed with life extension, prescribe microdoses of radioactive water for cell stimulation. Advertisers borrow the rhetoric. If radium cures, surely it beautifies. We watch Lily blow a kiss, unaware that each kiss flings invisible bullets through the air. She'll die in 1931 of aplastic anemia. Her obituary romanticizes her as a shooting star. Fast forward to 1932 Hollywood. Studio makeup guru Max Factor sits beneath a skylight, frowning at a screen test celluloid strip. Pancake makeup, zinc-based, non-toxic, reads gray under new Technicolor processes. Executives demand vibrancy. A supplier offers a batch of urine glow pigment. Harmless, the salesman claims, because radiation evaporates under hot Klieg's. Factor is suspicious. He's seen radium casualties. He declines, pivots to iron oxides, invents panchromatic base tinted for color film. That refusal quietly shuts one door to mass radioactive cosmetics, but 2 decades will pass before regulators bother catching up. While the Western world flirts with radium, Japan's Shiseido laboratories experiment with bespoke pearl essence. The shimmering mica base is innocent, but they add thallium, a soft gray metal once used in rat poison to boost slip. Geishas in Ginza dust it on necks to accentuate kimono lines. Thallium crosses skin, nests in hair follicles, and robs scalps of pigment. A diary from apprentice geisha Midori records her horror when, after a year of nightly thallium dusting, her hair turns snow white before 20. She weeps, then pivots. White wigs become fashionable, a micro-trend born from toxic serendipity. Pause. Breathe. Hear that? Church bells echo across Depression-era New Orleans, where voodoo beauty parlors promise love charms in rouge form. Proprietor Mambo Colette cooks Rouge Rouge, simmering beet juice with cinnabar and a pinch of lead glass ground in a mortar. She claims the brew binds lovers. Indeed, patrons often faint into their suitors' arms, hearts racing from mild lead intoxication misread as desire. Folklore, commerce, chemistry, braided into one crimson ribbon. While small shops conjure potions, big industry professionalizes hazard. DuPont scientists, perfecting Teflon, create perfluorinated compounds, PFAS, that later slip quietly into long-wear lip colors and waterproof mascaras in the 1940s. Immune to heat, water, even nuclear fallout, PFAS cling to lashes like oaths. Government focus lies on bombs. No one audits mascara. Chemists celebrate indestructible beauty. They don't foresee future headlines naming PFAs forever chemicals found in breast milk worldwide. World War II erupts. Rationing strips civilian markets of metals. Enter ersatz glamour, cadaver-gray face creams tinted with titanium dioxide, harmless but bulked with asbestos fiber for a matte, airbrushed feel. Asbestos mines in Quebec happily redirect surplus once insulating battleships. Velvet Veil cold cream glides on smooth, microfibers lodging in pores later lungs. Housewives love it. Air raid wardens compliment faces that don't shine under blackout torches. In 1948, British Medical Journal notes uptick in dermal fibrosis, yet can't isolate asbestos as cause. It's everyone's miracle fiber. After the war, marketing flips the script. Danger becomes démodé. Now the buzzword is scientific safety. Revlon's 1952 Living Lipstick campaign hires nuclear scientists to certify formulas free of radium. They fail to mention lead pigments still lurk, but the lab coats reassure. Television commercials show white-coated men peering into microscopes, nodding stoically. Consumers exhale, coat lips. Lead acetate sneaks through regulatory cracks labeled coal tar colorants. Still awake? Let's pad barefoot into suburban bathrooms of 1960s America. Teenagers smear Clearasil containing 0.5% mercury chloride to zap pimples. The label warns, "Avoid eye area." But at slumber parties, girls paint cat eye streaks for fun. Next morning, conjunctivitis blooms. Doctors blame poor hygiene. Only in 1973 will the FDA finally ban mercury in most topical cosmetics, an action decades late for thousands whose kidneys paid the price.
Zoom across the equator. In 1970s Nigeria, Mommy Water skin lightening soap becomes wedding day tradition. It's spiked with hydroxyquinone and, illicitly, mercury ammoniate. Brides chase brilliance worthy of river goddesses, but after honeymoon, their skin discolors into patchy blue-black. Dermatologists coin the term exogenous achronosis. Yet demand persists. Merchants claim the patches prove the soap reaches deep ancestral layers. Myth as marketing again.
Meanwhile, California's hippie counterculture births all-natural makeup. Earth-born cosmetics promise only flower pigments and beeswax. Hidden inside some pots, belladonna tincture for natural plumping, causing paradoxical dry mouth and tachycardia. They drop belladonna in 1976 after a consumer hallucinates mid-concert and sues. The natural label remains, the danger quietly replaced by carmine and iron oxides, evidence that sometimes regulation prompts progress. Enter the 1980s power suit era. Wall Street brokers demand makeup that survives 12-hour trading pits. Chemists unleash silicone fluids, cyclic siloxanes, D4, D5, smooth, volatile, later flagged for endocrine disruption. Again, lawsuits lag decades. Meanwhile, aerosol hairsprays infuse trifluoroethane to dodge ozone laws. The greenhouse gas quietly warms the planet while bangs stay aloft. Let your eyelids grow heavy, but hold on. We're gliding into 1990s Moscow, icy neon reflecting off snow. Black market booths sell Chernobyl pearl eyeshadow, shimmering like northern lights. Vendors swear it's mica from mystic mountains, but investigative journalists later test samples. Cesium-137 residue clings to flakes. The fallout travels on eyelids to nightclubs, glowing faint via Geiger counters while techno beats drown Geiger clicks. Near millennium's turn, consumer activism blossoms online. Forums trade ingredient lists, decode labels, expose lead in lipstick. Brands scramble to publish ppm lead levels. Some quietly swap in cadmium for reds at the threshold of detection. Cadmium, carcinogenic, accumulative. The dance continues. The European Union bans it in 2013. US still sets only voluntary limits. Today, your makeup bag might tout clean, green, vegan, but fluorinated glosses, nano-titanium particles, and undisclosed fragrance aldehydes hide behind trade secret shields. History's refrain. When one poison bows out, another enters stage left wearing eco-friendly feathers. We've traded jaw necrosis for hormone disruption, but the play goes on. Feel the hush settling over your room? That's our cue. Wig powder has drifted, radium dust dimmed, algorithms ready to tuck this episode into dreamland. Before we fade, slide to that like button so our little history salon stays open after hours. Subscribe for part 6, where we unpack the post-2010 K-beauty boom's obsession with snail mucin and why some Korean serums still clock surprise arsenic microdoses. And comment, which decade's cosmetic craze would you risk trying given a time travel pass? You open the bathroom cabinet of a Seoul high-rise at 3 a.m., blue city lights flickering through half-drawn blinds, and rows of jewel-toned ampules stare back like a choir of fireflies in crystal robes. Quick pause. Tap that like button if bioluminescent skincare doesn't freak you out. Hit subscribe so our midnight expeditions never get lonely. And tell me in the comments which step of your own routine you secretly suspect is more sorcery than science. Ready? Let's unscrew the first bottle before the glow fades. A viscous strand of snail mucin stretches from dropper to sink, shivering under the LED strip. The label promises 98% filtrate harvested at dawn to retain cosmic vibrancy. Snails roam mesh grids under faint electric shocks. Each tiny jolt persuades them to weep protective slime rich in glycololic acid, copper peptides, and trace heavy metals from the soil troughs beneath. Lab tests in 2017 found arsenic up to 3 parts per million in some export batches, camouflaged by dewy marketing language like Earth-derived minerals. Influencers tap the goo onto cheeks, rave about glass skin, while microdoses hitchhike into bloodstreams, binding to keratin the way legends cling to castles. Slide left along the shelf. Here's a bottle etched with pastel mermaids, Placenta Miracle Tone-Up Water. Korean brand, New Zealand sheep placenta extract, preserved with phenoxyethanol, scented with lilac aldehyde that EU regulators classify as a Group 2 allergen. Why placenta? Folklore says it channels newborn vitality. Science says it carries hormones, estrogen, progesterone, hot enough to nudge endocrine systems. Clinical reports note teenage users developing irregular cycles. Marketing departments rewrite the copy, swapping placenta for bio-recharging peptide. Same brew, new name, problem solved, on paper. Next, a packet mask soaked in bee venom hydrocellulose serum. Apiaries feed colonies sugar water laced with trace pesticides. The neurotoxins survive purification, nestling within the peptide melittin that brands tout for wrinkle-killing cell turnover. Dermatologists debate whether topical bee venom can even penetrate. Meanwhile, med spa clients schedule sting facials, paying $300 to let anesthetized bees graze their jawlines. One influencer suffers anaphylaxis live on stream. Views spike, so does sales traffic. But K-beauty isn't the only modern alchemist's lab. Pivot to the global counterfeits bazaar swirling through encrypted Instagram DMs. You follow a link to a warehouse in Shenzhen where unlabeled tubs of whitening base slosh on pallets. Formula? Illegally refined mercury chloride, undercutting legitimate brands by 80%. Micro-smugglers decant the paste into jars that mimic Ed Sheeran pink packaging from a famous Seoul company. Customs agents seize pallets monthly. Still, TikTok unboxings flourish. Users adore how fast dark spots fade. Mercury sabotages melanocytes overnight. 2 months later, tremors start in fingertips. Doctors chalk it up to energy drinks. Step back into the Korean apartment. You flip on the hot pink UV mirror, a gadget trending since 2019, designed to reveal purging bacteria under violet beams. But UV also excites trace uranium in the mineral mica scattered through budget highlighters. Under fluorescence, the powder flares green, a silent confession. The mirror's creator touts NASA-grade LEDs, forgetting NASA also spends billions shielding astronauts from ionizing radiation. Beauty consumers chase cosmic aesthetics, yet ignore cosmic hazards. Now let's widen the lens. Regulators race behind trends like children chasing kites. South Korea's MFDS inspects perhaps 1 in 20 factories annually. Ingredient lists flow in English, Korean, and marketing Esperanto. NMF, Sika, Hydroplump 4D, none legally binding. The US FDA treats cosmetics as low risk, intervening post-harm. Europe bans 1,600 chemicals. American shelves still cradle many under names ending paraben, siloxane, PEG, molecules that slip between cells like rumors through court corridors. A 2020 study by University of Notre Dame found 52% of tested North American mascaras laced with PFS. Brands argued contamination came from water-resistant pigment suppliers abroad. Meanwhile, trade groups petition for looser labeling, citing intellectual property. Sound familiar? It's 18th century Venetian white lead secrecy all over again, just coated in polymer patents instead of parchment. Cultural cross-pollination drives risk too. Western beauty vloggers import Pitera essence. Yeast filtrate discovered when sake artisans' hands remained youthful. Original formula contained natural arsenic, filtered out decades ago. But black market clones brewed in Indonesian garages still carry it. Viewers skip safety disclaimers, chasing fermentation chic. Zoom to Lagos, where Afro K-fusion lines emerge, sheer foundations infused with Korean brightening agents and local bleaching staples. One hit product, Soul Sun Cocoa Tone, boasts SPF 50, yet uses zinc oxide milled so coarse it scatters UV but leaves ghostly streaks. Manufacturers slip in oxybenzone for transparency, ignoring its coral reef toxicity. Nigerian beaches already suffer bleaching, now faces mimic the sand. Even clean beauty harbors ghosts. A New York startup hawks biodegradable glitter made from eucalyptus cellulose. Lab analysis shows 15% residual formaldehyde from film curing. The founder shrugs. Everything has trace chemicals. That resignation echoes ancient Egyptian coal wearers shrugging off lead salts, plus sachange. Back in Seoul, you crack open a fridge stocked with probiotic toners that advise refrigeration for live culture potency. One bottle leaks, smell like vinegar. Fermentation produced ethanol, but also acetaldehyde, a probable carcinogen. Instagram commenters blame shipping delays. Brand blames consumer for warm storage. Liability dissolves in translation like collagen peptides in lukewarm water. It's near dawn. Rain taps windows. Neon signs switch off. Yet the city's trash collectors haul giant clear bags brimming with emptied sheet mask sachets. Environmental groups warn of microplastic fibers clogging rivers. Beauty gurus pivot to compostable masks. Prototypes use banana fiber laced with antibacterial silver nanoparticles. Great for landfills, lethal for earthworm mitochondria. Headlines yet unwritten. We exit the apartment and glide down to a 24-hour convenience store. On the counter, sleep powder face mist. Ingredients: melatonin, lavender oil, Cyclopentasiloxane. Teenagers spray it before selfies. Dew-kissed skin cells. Melatonin absorbs transdermally. Some users report vivid nightmares, ironic for a product meant to pacify. Pharmacologists fear hormonal disruption in minors, but the product skirts drug classification by calling melatonin a natural fragrance note. Step outside into drizzle. A street vendor sells boiled silkworm pupae cups. Behind him, a beauty stall demos Bombix eye serum, claiming proteins mimic retinol without irritation. Papers show Saracen can bind to allergens, triggering dermatitis in 5% of users, but disclaimers vanish in translation, lost among K-pop pastel fonts. Tourists buy, dab around eyes, photo gleam, fly home. Souvenir rash blooms mid-flight. We wander into Gangnam's aesthetic clinic row. Menu boards flash BB Glow semi-permanent foundation, injecting iron oxide micropigments with microneedles. Some technicians sterilize tools in UV boxes rather than autoclaves. Blood-borne pathogens hitchhike. One study found 11% of clients develop granulomas months later, iron trapped under skin like rusted coins, requiring steroid injections. Yet hashtags #BBGlow surpass 2 million posts. Pain filters easily when apps airbrush granulomas. Exhausted? Good. That's the insomnia medieval monks once soothed with ghost stories. Modern insomniacs scroll ingredient Reddit threads, hunting carcinogens by candlelight screen glow. Anxiety, then balm, then anxiety. The market's perpetual motion machine. Before we drift off, flick your eyes toward future horizons. Biotech labs engineer opopeptides from genetically edited yeast that secrete spider silk proteins for elasticity. Promising, but CRISPR off-target edits may produce allergenic fragments. Regulation hasn't caught up. Someday, Firebrand will launch Arachne Silk Essence. First recall might already be incubating in a petri dish tonight. You yawn. Cap the last ampule. Feel the room pulse faintly with unseen isotopes, endocrine whispers, nanoshards. Beauty, danger, hope, all emulsified in one cream swirling under LED starlight. Torchlight breathes across a cave wall streaked in blood-red ochre, and your shadow flickers beside the outline of a hand pressed here 40,000 years ago. Before we dust the pigment for clues, quick housekeeping. Tap the subscribe bell so these midnight excursions keep sneaking onto your feed. Drop a comment telling me the oldest cosmetic item you own, and share this with a friend whose vanity drawer might double as a hazardous materials lab. All right, tuck in. Tonight we pull the story thread all the way back to where beauty, danger, and human longing first tangled. In this Paleolithic grotto, the air tastes of damp limestone. A pile of ground hematite glows ember brown on the floor, nature's first blush. Archaeologists found traces of animal fat mixed with this iron oxide, an ancient rouge applied to cheeks, lips, even infant corpses laid to rest. Was it ritual, status, or simply a way to glow in firelight? Whatever the motive, iron filings snuck into lungs of artisans who spent hours grinding stone against stone. Breathing ferric dust scars alveoli, and a lifetime of inhalation seeds siderosis, stoneworker's lung, before the term worker even existed. Drift forward millennia to Neolithic Anatolia. Women of Çatalhöyük adorn themselves with malachite eye paint, its green shimmer mirrored later by Cleopatra's famous kohl. But raw malachite breaks down into copper carbonate dust. Chronic exposure invites copper toxicity, vomiting, jaundice, cognitive fog. Excavations reveal skeletons with pitted orbital bones, perhaps early ocular infections from constant smearing of unsterile pigment. Yet graves also contain cosmetic shells, buried like passports to the afterlife's beauty standard, the risk worth eternal radiance. Skip to Bronze Age Britain, where tin mines of Cornwall feed trade routes. Local elites flaunt faces streaked silver-white with cassiterite powder. Tin itself is benign, but miners spend dawn to dusk amid seams streaked with arsenopyrite, a tin arsenic ore. They emerge coated in glittering dust, which wives later mix into face paste, unknowingly applying arsenic trioxide that oxidized in air. We picture a chieftainess dancing round Beltane fires, cheeks gleaming like moon shards, breath sweet with mead, and marrow quietly sipping poison. Now cross the Mediterranean. In ancient Cyprus, islanders refined cinnabar, mercuric sulfide, into vermilion luxury pigment. Quarry slaves heat ore in clay retorts. Mercury vapor condenses on walls as silvery film they scrape off to sell for alchemical experiments. Workers hallucinate, tremor, lose teeth. The telltale signs of mercurialism, later dubbed Mad Hatter disease. Yet elite priestesses continue lining lips with vermilion, believing it channels sun god vitality. Power demands sacrifice. Mercury claims it silently. Roman matrons escalate. They crave cerussa, a snow-white paste brewed by suspending lead sheets over vinegar until sweet lead acetate blooms. Plinius writes that pale skin equals virtue. Women layer cerussa thick as plaster, cracking smiles into spiderweb fissures, reapplying hourly. Contemporary medical scrolls note sweet taste in throats and falling hair. Lead creeps through gums, invades fetus. Yet fashion columns, yes, Rome-printed beauty manuals, insist pallor conceals blemish and distraction. Legions spread cerussa tech across Europe. The empire collapses, lead chic survives. Fast forward to medieval courts. Noble women still chase pallor, but layer on orpiment, arsenic sulfide, for yellow undertones that mimic golden light of the saints. Apothecaries warn ingestion kills rats. Courtiers shrug, they only apply topically. Unaware, skin absorbs arsenic. Church sermons decry vanity, yet bishops secretly commission perfumed versions, their rings hiding tiny orpiment compartments. When plague erupts, dermatologists of the day blame miasma, missing the heavy metals eroding immune systems. Renaissance Venice perfects aqua tofana. Remember part 1? The lethal face lotion doubling as discreet murder weapon. Its recipe, arsenic, lead, belladonna, also functions as daily foundation for thousands of women who never intend homicide. Letters between courtesans gush over its flawless porcelain finish, oblivious that each drop screws calcium out of bones, thinning skulls like eggshells. Many die in childbirth. Midwives blame melancholy humors. Bounce across the channel to Elizabethan England. Queen Bess herself, scarred by smallpox, plasters on spirit of Saturn. White lead, vinegar, and egg whites whipped into silent suffocation. Observers note her wigs grow taller as real hair abandons scalp. Portraits immortalize her alabaster perfection. Diaries record her fingers trembling, maybe from lead neuropathy.
Subjects imitate, launching a nationwide vogue that historians can track through lead levels in Tudor cemetery teeth, so high they rival modern industrial workers. But here's the twist. Danger always births counterculture. 17th century French natural philosopher Marie Murdrac, tired of court poisonings, publishes La chimie charitable et facile, advocating safer botanicals, rosewater, almond oil. She warns of white lead's slow violence. The Academy scoffs, yet her book travels secret circles. A proto-regulatory voice in the wilderness, hinting at our modern clean beauty hashtags. Leap into the 18th century Caribbean. Colonial elites import Spanish brown face tint, a mix of bauxite and, you guessed it, lead chromate for extra sparkle. Slaves forced to crush ore inhale dust, developing island sickness, likely chromium poisoning mimicking leprosy. Documents reveal plantation mistresses complaining their complexion cakes arrive with ugly gray flecks, bits of lung tissue, perhaps, from miners thousands of miles away. Beauty's supply chain already globalized tragedy. Enter the Industrial Revolution. Gaslight spreads, shadows deepen, makeup compensates. Chemists synthesize aniline dyes, a coal tar derivative, to produce mauve and magenta rouges. Initial batches contain toxic benzidine. Factory girls called paint stainers develop bladder cancer decades before doctors link dye exposure. Corporate ledgers record high employee turnover. Shareholders toast profit margins. Victorian moralists briefly suppress heavy cosmetics, equating them with sex work. Yet theater actresses Lily Langtry, Sarah Bernhardt smuggle rouges backstage, advertising brands covertly through curtain call glow. Fans replicate looks at home under dim parlor lamps, reasoning minimal quantities pose no threat. But coal tar dyes accumulate. By 1900, London hospitals document a rise in makeup dermatitis. The pattern repeats: fad, denial, pathology, partial reform. Cue the radium age we explored earlier. Luminous dust on Juliet's cheeks, followed by the 20th century carousel. Mercury lighteners, cadmium reds, PFAS mascaras, silicone slip agents. Each generation waltzes with a new molecule, trusts packaging, pays in health decades later. The substances change, but the equation, desire plus ignorance equals danger, stays constant. Now, widen the spotlight to modern royals. Press speculation swirled around Grace Kelly's imported French powders allegedly painted with cadmium, an unverified rumor, yet her fatal stroke at 52 fuels conspiracy blogs. Diana's 1980s blue eyeliner contained cobalt aluminate, safe in theory, but counterfeiters sold knockoffs laced with barium, leading to sudden allergic edema among dedicated copycats. Meghan Markle's advocacy for clean lines triggers a surge in demand, but lab tests still catch phthalates sneaking into luxury gloss labeled organic. Even queens of influencer age can't dodge chemistry's shell game. At this point, you may wonder, is there any paint pot wholly innocent? Pure iron oxide? Nectar and beeswax? Perhaps. Yet scale breeds shortcuts. The minute a safe ingredient becomes trendy, cheaper adulterants lurk. Regulation chases, never leads. We stand in a long procession of faces turned toward whatever burns brightest, soothed by marketing lullabies until autopsy reports whisper truth. The candle in our cave guttered long ago. Only your phone glow remains. So, what lessons travel home with us?
First, skepticism is royal armor. Read labels, yes, but also learn which words mask hazards. Fragrance can cloak hundreds of chemicals. Fluorinated hints PFS. Brightening historically meant mercury. When transparency is optional, absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Second, collective memory matters. When companies claim new breakthroughs, recall ancestors who inhaled lead dust, sipped radium cocktails, or dabbed mercury creams. Trends often resurrect old ghosts wearing fresh fonts. Ask for test data, independent studies, not influencer codes. Third, vanity itself isn't villain. Humans painted faces before farming grain. Color celebrates life, signals tribe, projects power. The danger blooms when profit eclipses caution, when allure outpaces inquiry. Demand both beauty and safety. History proves they need not be mutually exclusive. Fourth, advocate for science literacy. Support robust cosmetic regulation, mandatory ingredient disclosure, heavy metal thresholds, PFAS bans. Write representatives, sign petitions, educate peers. Each voice stacks like mica flakes until policymakers feel the weight. Finally, remember that radiance glows deeper than surface sheen. Sleep, hydration, laughter, all free, all proven safer than any tube of eternal youth. Your bones will thank you in the archaeology layer of tomorrow. The cave walls recede, pixel by pixel, as our expedition ends. If eyelids flutter, let these tales settle like gentle ash. May they guard you against chemic sirens beckoning from future isles. If curiosity still sparks, binge the full playlist. Night's hedgehog feasts, plague doctors, Viking nightmares. Each a lantern for sleepless hours. Before you drift, click like so the algorithm knows bedtime stories can double as survival manuals. Subscribe to join our nocturnal fellowship. Fresh episodes drop every moonlit Tuesday. Comment below, which historical cosmetic horror chilled you most? Or maybe which modern product triggers deja vu now? I read every note under the quilts of night. Close the cabinet. Set down the torch. Breathe copper-free air. Dream in colors no toxin can dim. Good night, brave voyagers. Radiant, wise, and glowing only with safe light.